It's a Christmas miracle this trade didn't go through. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and in today's video, we're breaking down the latest reports surrounding the Red Sox that had them making what I think most people would consider a really bad trade, and we're going to break down why this should terrify you as it terrifies me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so the reported almost trade that occurred that we are talking about today comes from Mark Feinsand, who sort of broke down where the Red Sox were and everything. And in this article, he talked about how the Red Sox were targeting Luis Castillo before they ended up signing Walker Buehler. Not exactly a surprising thing for Mark Feinsand to say, right? We've seen Luis Castillo connected to the Boston Red Sox quite a few times over the last couple of weeks, especially right before they signed Walker Buehler, right? We were getting reports all over the place that the Red Sox were really intentionally going for one of the Mariners starting pitchers, and everyone kind of assumed it was Luis Castillo. He then goes on to say that the Mariners wanted Triston Casas back in return. Again, not totally surprising, right? We do have some conflicting reports here, and this is where the conflict starts a little bit with this idea from Mark Feinsand, or with this, I guess, report, I should say, from Mark Feinsand, because Alex Spear has reported that no, Triston Casas wasn't really discussed in these trade negotiations. It was more focused around other infield type players for the Seattle Mariners, whereas Seattle beat reporters were pretty steadfast that in order to get Luis Castillo, the Red Sox were most likely going to have to give up Triston Casas. Mark Feinsand appears to be landing on the side of the Seattle beat reporters because he's saying that Seattle wanted Triston. Now, what's really surprising about this trade isn't so much that Triston was asked, not so much that the Red Sox were interested in Luis Castillo, it's the fact that the Red Sox were pretty willing to trade away Triston Casas, because according to Mark Feinsand, the Red Sox were considering doing this if Seattle was willing to take back Masataka Yoshida and the rest of his contract. Now, I think on the surface, there is some Red Sox logic here, right? We see it all the time in Major League Baseball, attaching a really valuable asset to a contract that a team doesn't like to rid themselves of that deal, while also still being able to get something back in return. I think Red Sox fans could think of one example where the Red Sox traded away a very valuable asset with a really large contract attached so that the Red Sox didn't have to pay that one. And we all know exactly how that trade ended up, right? One of the guys got struck out in the World Series to end the World Series for the New York Yankees. You guys know exactly what trade I'm talking about. We're not going to dive super deep into that, but there is some logic to that, right? We see that a lot around Major League Baseball with these sort of albatross contracts that teams don't want put into these bigger trades in order to still retain some value. So there is some logic here for the Red Sox. On the other hand, though, there's absolutely no logic here, in my opinion. For starters, you didn't really have, or you still don't really have, a replacement for Triston Casas. Luis Castillo is a fine pitcher. He would have been probably a solid get for the Red Sox. He is a guy who's going to give you a ton of innings. He has a history of being a solid mid to top rotation pitcher in Major League Baseball, but he's also been regressing for the last 3 years at a very consistent rate, to the point where it's probably assumed he's towards the back end of his career. His home away splits outside of the worst hitting ballpark in baseball aren't exactly fantastic. His ERA is an entire run higher. His opponent OPS is 100 points higher. What the Red Sox would be getting for Triston Casas in this deal would be a starter very clearly on the back end of his career on a bit of a bigger contract, right? You'd have to take on this guy and $72 million to make this happen. And right there, that's a really scary thought. But even outside of just who you'd be getting back in return in this deal, what do you do if you trade Triston? I feel like we've talked about this before, but let's just go over the options for the Red Sox had they traded Triston Casas. There was a wildly overpay Pete Alonso because, hey, Christian Walker, he went somewhere else. I completely forget. Oh, the Houston Astros. You'd have to overpay Pete Alonso, who's aging, who probably is going to put up similar statistics to Triston Casas this season, right? You maybe some more home runs, but everything else probably going to be right around where Triston Casas is. Or you could trade for one of the best defensive third basemen in history of Major League Baseball and for some reason move him to first base. Maybe that works out, maybe it doesn't. or you could move your statistically already bad third baseman that you have on this team to an entirely new position with 2 months until the season starts and hope that he can figure it out really, really quickly in a year where you're trying to, or at least you're telling people you're trying to compete for a division, right? There was no legitimately good solution to this problem. People are going to be like, oh, just trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. If that was an option, don't you think the Red Sox would have explored that already? Like, I sit here and I think, okay, yeah, you could potentially trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but he's right now denying $364 million from the Blue Jays. What makes you think the Red Sox, one, are going to pony up $400+ million to sign him long term, and two, that he's going to accept that deal and you aren't going to lose him in free agency anyways, right? There's so much risk involved with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It just, there wasn't a clear solution to this Tristan Casas stuff, especially for who you were trying to get in this deal. That makes me absolutely terrified as to why the Red Sox decided to do this, because in my opinion, it boils down to one of three reasons. Either one, Craig Breslow doesn't entirely understand the value of Tristan, or really the value in a trade market. Now, I don't entirely believe that this one is the case, considering he did a really good job of getting Garrett Crochet without having to give up one of your 3 top prospects in your farm system, right? He was able to pry him out of the Chicago White Sox hands without giving up too much. He definitely paid fair market value for that. I'm not saying he got a steal or anything, but he also didn't get ripped off either. So I'm not entirely sure that this is Craig Breslow just entirely not understanding the market. The second thing that this could indicate is that the Red Sox are so afraid of spending on a starting pitcher on the free agent market that they were willing to take on an absolutely albatross contract from the Seattle Mariners in Luis Castillo over the next few years, just simply to avoid doing it. They were willing to give up Tristan Casas just simply to avoid spending big boy money on a starting pitcher, even though you'd still be spending money on a guy like this. It's just simply, I don't know if it's the allure of a free agent pitcher that scares this front office or what, but that really scares me in going forward, not even just this offseason, because they did end up getting Walker Buehler. I'm talking about going forward with this Red Sox team. Or 3, this kind of indicates the Red Sox are hell-bent for some unknown reason to trading Tristan Casas. Like, it feels like at this point, Tristan Casas will not survive the next 4 years of his arbitration with this Red Sox team, right? It just feels like they are intent on making sure that he is not in the starting lineup at some point in the future, and I just don't really understand why. I can't wrap my head around why the Red Sox would want to get rid of this guy. A lot of people are going to point towards, oh, he was injured last year. He's going to continue to be injured his entire career. Well, the year before that, he played 132 games. I'm taking 132 games of Tristan Casas and his potential at the plate over, I would say, a whole lot of first basemen here in Major League Baseball, right? I don't think there are too many first basemen that I would take 160 games over Tristan for. Honestly, I don't think that's really a huge reason, unless the Red Sox are fully convinced that Tristan Casas will never play 130 plus games a season ever again. I don't really understand that logic. Could it be that Tristan Casas is so far removed in terms of extension talks that the Red Sox are like, there's absolutely no way this is going to get done at any point in the near future? Maybe that's the case. But even if that is the case, don't you have 4 years to try and figure out what you're going to do with Tristan if he's not going to be extended, right? This shouldn't be something that's an immediate priority for this Red Sox team, especially, again, if you're trying to legitimately compete in 2025. Tristan Casas can absolutely help you do that. To me, trading a guy with 4 years left of control just simply because he's not willing to sign an extension right now, it doesn't feel like a move that a team that is trying to compete in 2025 makes, right? That's a move a team that's trying to compete in 4 or 5 years makes as they try to build back up their farm system. That's not a super competitive move in my opinion, so that's kind of dumb anyways. I just can't for the life of me figure out why the Red Sox would want to make this deal, why this was put on the table in the first place. Are they that desperate for any starting pitching that they're willing to create bigger problems in and around the infield just simply to make that happen? Or is this complete total bad judgment from Craig Breslow? And all of the answers, the potential answers to this question really scare me here. No, I do think we need to have a conversation about the validity of Mark Feinstein's reporting here, because I don't know what to believe when it comes to what actually occurred in this deal, because we've heard completely opposite things from basically every other source, but specifically one of the most reliable sources when it comes to Red Sox information, right? Alex Spear multiple times has been adamant that the Red Sox were not putting Tristan Casas on the table. This is a total and complete opposite lane than what Mark Feinsand is saying. And if we're being honest here, who do you believe? I think you got to go with the guy who's been mostly right in Alex Spear as opposed to Mark Feinsand, who, let's say, especially when it comes to the Red Sox, lets his New York bias show a little bit when it comes to overall reporting, right? He's very down consistently on the Boston Red Sox, and there comes times where he's just simply not extremely accurate when it comes to either what the Red Sox are trying to do or what the Red Sox are going to do. So there is some holes that you can poke in this Mark Feinsand report, but at the same time, too, how many times have we heard Tristan Casas' name brought up when it comes to trade rumors this offseason? There's a reason Alex Spear had to write multiple articles about the fact that the Red Sox weren't looking to trade Tristan Casas for Luis Castillo, or at the bare minimum, the Mariners weren't looking to get Tristan Casas back for Luis Castillo. It's because a lot of people kept saying Tristan Casas might be included in this deal, and this is not the first time we've heard that, right? We've heard that the Red Sox shopped Tristan Casas multiple times this offseason, so honestly, I don't know what reporting is more accurate. I have no idea, and that's kind of the worst part about these off seasons, especially once you get into what could have happened instead of what actually is going to happen or what did happen. A lot of it ends up coming down to whose source you're going to end up believing, right? Did Mark Feinsand get this from someone who's not a big fan of the Red Sox front office? Or maybe they got it from the Seattle Mariners, who are trying to make themselves look better as to why they weren't willing to trade a starting pitcher to improve this team going into 2025, whereas Alex Spear is getting it from the Red Sox point of view, who know that if you say you try to trade Tristan Casas, you are absolutely starting a wildfire amongst Red Sox Nation. It's sort of this he said, she said battle, and you got to figure out which side you land on. I'm still sticking by my guy, Alex Spear. I think at the end of the day, this is the dude who, in my opinion, is the more reliable source. So I'm not entirely sure that this Mark Feinsand thing is accurate, but if it is accurate, which could definitely be a possibility here, it is absolutely terrifying. It's terrifying because the Red Sox feel hell-bent on trading Tristan for some unknown reason and making this team worse without any subsequent moves. It's terrifying because it shows that there could be some cracks in Craig Breslau's logic when it comes to the trade market, which is a little bit terrifying going forward, not this offseason, because it feels like they're just a bat away from calling it quits, probably a bullpen arm too, but for off seasons to come, especially with the talent that's coming up over the next few years, those are two really, really terrifying possibilities if this thing is true, and I absolutely hate every single second of it. But I want your opinion. First and foremost, where do you land on this? Do you believe that this report is accurate, or do you believe Alex Spear? But two, even if you don't fully believe this report, what do you think this could potentially mean? Just let's play hypothetical here if this report is true. What do you think this means for the Red Sox? What do you think this means for the future of this team? Let me know all your thoughts on this horrible, in my opinion, trade idea in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton. It's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you want to listen instead of watch these episodes, the best way to do that is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.